men's basketball takes a tough loss against the Houston Cougars. Number 5 women's basketball continues to impress and defeated the Iowa State Cyclones at home. And finally, a preview of Texas softball. All this and more coming up on College Press Box.
Good evening and welcome to College Press Box. I'm your host, Perlo Paredes, and she's Alyssa King. We have a great show for you this evening.
But first, a quick reminder before we get started. We are sponsored by Cap Metro, Austin's very own regional public transportation provider, connecting you to work, school, play, and more. Find your ride at capmetro.org. Texas men's basketball are playing the Kansas State Wildcats at the Moody Center tonight and are looking to avenge their ugly loss against Houston on Saturday. Our men's basketball reporters Jason Conander and Debony Serta are at the Moody Center to preview tonight's game.
Live at the Moody Center, I'm Debony Serta here with Jason Conander. Texas defeats K-State from 6 points. So Jason, give me some quick rapid thoughts about the game literally just ended.
Yeah, Debony, I mean, it was a huge game for Texas tonight. This was a game that they had to have sandwiched in between road trips against Houston and Kansas. Texas couldn't afford an inevitable 3-game losing streak. So picking up the big home win on Monday night against Kansas State is a good sign for this Texas team. They've struggled at home in conference play. This was a good matchup for Texas against a smaller team, a team that struggles defensively, small guard play, not a whole lot of big guys, and Texas used that to their advantage. Rodney Terry said post-game that when they play Caden Shedrick and Dylan Dessou together, it's a little bit more out of circumstance with who they're playing against. And today we saw that defensive lineup make big impacts for Texas. It wasn't a big scoring output for Max Abmas, even though he scored his 3,000th career NCAA point tonight. Texas had to find their scoring from other options, but all in all, it was a good win for the Longhorns. They were able to hold strong on the home court in a close game, despite the comeback effort towards the end by Kansas State. Debony, this was a huge win for Texas to improve to 6-7 in conference play, stay near 500, stay atop the NCAA tournament bubble, and give yourself a little bit of breathing room before a trip to Allen Fieldhouse on Saturday.
You know, the game did get scrappy towards the very end, and as you mentioned, coming into this game, both teams were 5-7, and it was a crucial win for either teams, and obviously Texas gets the win over. They advanced to 6-7. Now, what does this Texas win mean, not only for this team, but leading up into March Madness coming up for the NCAA tournament?
Well, Debony, you ask a great question. March Madness is just weeks away, and every win counts for Texas. This was a big one for the Longhorns. Their net ranking sits within the 30s. Their KenPom rating sits within the 30s. Right now, they are probably safe to make the NCAA tournament, unless they lose every game the rest of the way. Now that they have this one, another solid quad 2 win on their home court at the Moody Center, the Longhorns are in good shape. They're right around that 6, 7, 8 seed range with a big win or two, especially with some ranked road games coming up towards the end of the regular season. The Longhorns will have the opportunity to climb to that 4, maybe 5 seed line with a couple of wins. But right now we're looking at a team that's probably going to be in that middle seed range, sort of uncharted territory for Texas in seasons past. They've been around a 2, 3, or a 4 seed. So now the Longhorns being a 7 or an 8 with lower expectations going into the tournament, they're in good position. They're probably going to get a good draw in the first round. And then after that point, it's March, Debony. Anything can happen with Texas. Last season, they made the Elite 8. This season, it's anybody's guess. But if the veteran leadership that we saw during this game and in the post-game press conference indicates anything, it's that this Texas Longhorns group will not be an easy out in the NCAA tournament. They're going to fight for every win. And these guys' college careers, these fifth-year seniors, Dylan Dessou and Max Abmas, their college careers are not going to go down without a fight. Texas showed some real resiliency tonight. They've showed resiliency down the stretch, and they will need to continue to show that fight if they're going to want to make an NCAA tournament run similar to that of last season.
I guess you could say they really showed their Texas fight tonight, and hopefully we can able to see that down the stretch. Now, that's all from both of us tonight. Thank you so much for coming on, Jason. Reporting live from Moody Center, I'm Debony Serta.
Thank you for that analysis, Jason and Debony. When we return, our very own Kendall Unger joins us to break down Texas women's basketball after 2 wins this past week. We'll be back after this.
Welcome back to College Press Box. It's time to talk some women's basketball. This season has brought some ups and downs from the beginning, with Harmon's season-ending injury to their first 3 losses on being in conference games. However, Texas has seemed to bounce back and are currently ranked number 5 in the nation and tied for second in the Big-12. With a record of 24-3, how far will the team go in March? Kendall Unger joins the College Press Box to tell us all about this and more. How are you doing today, Kendall?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here.
This past week, the Longhorns' performance was dominant in the defeat of both Iowa State and Houston. What are your key takeaways from the games and what players stood out to you?
So Texas women's basketball further extended their game streak to 6 straight wins since facing their tough loss to Oklahoma. On Wednesday, the Longhorns defeated Houston 82-66, and their defense continued to play aggressively, a change we've seen in the team over the past few weeks. Keys to the game included out-rebounding Houston 42-24, as well as Texas outscoring them from the paint 54-22. Dayona Gayton and Aaliyah Moore both recorded 8 rebounds out of the team's 42 total. No surprise at all, Madison Booker led the team in shooting with 23. Coach Vic Schaefer was quoted after the game referring to Booker as a true All-American player running the team as a freshman. During the Iowa State game on Saturday, Madison Booker once again had a breakout performance, recording 18 points on the 81-60 win. Booker had 10 assists and 3 steals as well. Shaylee Gonzalez also recorded 18 points on the game. Texas outscored Iowa State throughout the entire game, including the fourth quarter alone 23-10. The Longhorns' confidence seems to be at an all-time high, and this is proving well for how they are playing on both sides of the ball at this point of the season.
Oklahoma remains the only ranked opponent left on the schedule to play whom they suffered a loss from earlier this season. What are your predictions of how this game will play out? Kendall.
So Texas women's basketball faced a heartbreaking 91-87 loss to Oklahoma back in January. Since then, it seems Texas has been playing like a completely different team. During this game, the Longhorns struggled defensively, giving up the most amount of points to an opponent all season. Despite fighting back in the fourth quarter from a double-digit deficit, Texas came up short. The team also had 10 turnovers, whereas Oklahoma had 9, which was the fewest number of turnovers inducted by Longhorn defense during a single game. Looking ahead to the rematch, Texas will face Oklahoma on the road. They stand a good chance if they continue playing at the level of aggression and fight we've seen from the team during the past few games. Texas needs to cause turnovers and outscore Oklahoma. They can beat this team if they have the confidence to do so. I'm hopeful in my prediction that Texas will bring back a win in this game.
Currently being 24-3, what are your thoughts for the remainder of the season, and how do you think the playoff chances look past them?
So after the Longhorns win against Iowa State, they are currently tied for second place in the Big-12 with West Virginia. The remainder of the regular season consists of games against Texas Tech, UCF, Oklahoma, and BYU. With how Texas women's basketball is playing, they are expected to win these games with no problem, with the exception of their rematch against Oklahoma, the number 1 team in the Big-12. Right now, one thing to note is West Virginia beat Oklahoma this past Saturday, which Texas dominated over earlier this season. This should give Texas some confidence for this game and bring home that win. I think based on how Texas is playing, they are in good shape and should win out the rest of the season. This means they must continue playing with fight and aggression by outscoring and out-rebounding their opponents. Under the leadership of players like Madison Booker and Aaliyah Moore, I believe the Longhorns could go far in the NCAA tournament. Texas is sitting at number 5 right now behind undefeated South Carolina, Ohio State, Stanford, and Iowa. I'm hopeful they will make it to the Elite 8 if they are seated at a good spot. Texas women's basketball looks ahead to the remainder of the season and remain optimistic about moving forward in the tournament. If Texas remains confident and aggressive throughout the entire game, the Longhorns can definitely compete with these elite teams.
All right, thank you for coming on the show, Kendall. Coming up on College Press Box, Gabriel Sylvia will break down Longhorn softball at the beginning of their season. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
Welcome back to College Press Box. Joining us now to preview the Texas softball season is Gabriel Silva. Gabriel, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Ready to talk some softball.
Awesome. So, Gabriel, tell me, how has the beginning of the season gone so far for the Longhorns?
Texas softball season is officially started a couple of weeks ago at the Stacy Winberg tournament, where they took on the University of San Diego, UCLA, and LMU. To start the tournament, Texas routed San Diego and Mac Morgan threw a no-hitter in a quick 5 innings of work to cap off the dominant offensive showing. The nightcap for the first day featured Texas's first biggest challenge against the UCLA Bruins. That night, freshman pitcher Tegan Cavan took the circle and pitched an absolute gem in her first career start. The game started off with Texas leading 3-0 before UCLA was able to push some runs across the board in the 6th inning to end Texas pitching's 10 straight scoreless inning streak. Sidley Gutierrez was able to keep the Bruins from tying the game in the last 2 innings to secure Texas's first huge win of the season. The next day, they took on the same opponents, and in similar fashion, they blew out San Diego 16-1 in 5 innings. And the 1 run was unearned for Texas pitcher Sophia Simpson, who came in to relieve Estelle Check after 4 innings of work. The biggest surprise was the blowout of UCLA the next game. After a close contest the night prior, Texas proceeded to score 16 runs in the game after an explosive 8-run 4th inning. The 16-0 win against UCLA was the most lopsided loss in the history of a 48-year-old UCLA softball program that has won 12 national titles. This 16-0 win is also Texas' biggest rout of a ranked team since they started playing softball in 1997. UCLA began the season ranked 10th in the NFCA preseason poll. In the Sunday finale, Texas would yet again make quick work of their opponent. Against LMU, they started slow, but another explosive 4th inning put the game to bed as they ended up going 5-0 on the weekend. In this tournament, Texas outscored their opponents with a score of 64-5. The pitching was spectacular throughout the weekend, and the offense was just as deadly as well. Obviously, after a historically dominant weekend, Texas softball would have to follow that up yet again in their tournament from this past weekend. In the Clearwater Invitational in Florida, the Longhorns would take on the number 2 ranked Tennessee Volunteers. To start off, they jumped out to an early 2-0 lead, and that would be all they needed as Gutierrez was able to hold the Volunteers to only 1 run. If that wasn't hard enough, the Longhorns had to make a quick turnaround and play number 9 Stanford. Well, it didn't seem to faze the Longhorns at all, as they ended up beating the Stanford Cardinal 9-2 in another outstanding offensive performance to go along with the gem pitched by Tegan Cavan. Unfortunately for the Longhorns, the rest of the games for the weekend were canceled due to rainy weather, and they were unable to play against even more ranked opponents in Kentucky and Northwestern. Yet, there were still some things they could hang their hats on. Last season, Texas went 6-11-1 against ranked teams. Texas has beaten a top 10 team in 4 of its first 7 games to begin this season, and has outscored their opponents 75-8 as well. And they are looking excellent in the early going.
I mean, yeah, it sounds like a pretty solid start. Are there any specific players that we should keep an eye on going forward? Well,
some players that we should start off with are some senior leaders. Captain Alyssa Washington has started off the season on a roll. She is hitting at a .412 clip to start the season and has always found herself on base and has been driven in 7 times in the season. She has been a great leader for this year's version of the Longhorns. Another leader is outfielder Bella Dayton. As a leadoff hitter, she is hitting at a .368 average and has been driven in 7 times as well. As a leadoff hitter, she always finds herself on base for the middle of the lineup to do their damage. In the outfield, she has shown her athletic prowess and has made play after play in center field. Both Alyssa and Bella were a part of the World Series runner-up team in 2022, and both are eager to make it back after getting a taste of it and falling short, and then not being able to make it back to the World Series in 2023. Another key component for this year's team is the pitching staff. Gutierrez has been shut down with a .50 ERA and has struck out 10 batters in 14 innings while giving up 12 hits. Estelle Check has come back for another year and does not have to shoulder too much of a load now that the staff has some more arms to work with, thanks to Arizona State junior transfer Mac Morgan and junior Sophia Simpson. But the biggest name to watch in the circle is freshman Tegan Cavan. Head coach Mike White was raving about her in the offseason, and now Texas fans will be able to see her in full effect to start her career, where she was thrown into the fire against number 10 UCLA, and she was absolute nails. She did struggle near the end of the game, but has still been lights out in all 3 of her appearances. She has started off with a 3.23 ERA, has given up 8 hits, and has 18 strikeouts to start the season. And there's one more name that I forgot to mention, and that is sophomore Reese Atwood. Last year, she took over the softball world with multiple towering home runs and many clutch walk-offs. She was named to the All Big-12 second team and led the Longhorns with 11 home runs on the season last year. Many were wondering, how would she follow up the amazing freshman season that she had? And she has responded with authority. She has started off this season on another planet in these 7 games. She is sitting at a whopping .619 batting average and a 1.333 slugging percentage, has already driven in 15 runs to go along with 13 hits and 4 home runs. In each of Texas's games to start the season, she has been the catalyst for the offensive production when she steps up to the plate. It will be interesting to see if Atwood can maintain this level of production throughout the rest of the season, and if she does, she can be in the running for National Player of the Year and could lead the Longhorns to a World Series berth.
A World Series would be pretty awesome. So finally, Gabriel, what is your final outlook on the season?
Well, the biggest question for the Longhorns is if they can knock off the Oklahoma Sooners. The Sooners are coming off. They're the 3-time defending national champions, and they have won 62 straight softball games in a row. They will look to continue their recent stretch of dominance, but the Longhorns are going to look to put a stop to that. Oklahoma has started off strong. They've gone 9-0, but not many know how this new roster will look as the season progresses for the Sooners. The Longhorns will have a chance to dethrone the Sooners in the beginning of April, and luckily for the Longhorns, those games will be played at their home field here in Austin. Another question is if Texas can maintain their hot start throughout the season. The Longhorns have been taking care of business in all of their games so far. Texas only has to face a few ranked opponents until the end of March and into early April. But once that stretch hits, they have to take on Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, and Baylor for 3 straight weekends. This Longhorns team has the ability to capture lightning in a bottle and could go on a historic run if they can keep this early season momentum on their side as the season progresses. The pitching has been phenomenal and has plenty of arms to fall back on as the season progresses, and the offense has been potent to start and has the potential to be one of the best in the nation as we get deeper into the season. Could this be the team to finally break through and dethrone Oklahoma? I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Thank you so much for that, Gabriel. When we return, we will recap the past week in Longhorn sports. We'll be right back. And welcome back to College Press Box. Now let's take a quick look back at this past week in Longhorn sports. Number 16 Texas baseball secured a 7-3 comeback victory over San Diego on opening day at Dish Field. Jalen Flores played a crucial role, hitting a go-ahead grand slam in the 6th inning, contributing to a 5-run rally. Texas then secured a 9-4 victory over San Diego in their last game, clinching the series with runs scored in 5 consecutive innings. The Longhorns, now 2-1, achieved their first series win, one that drew a total attendance of over 22,000 people, setting a program record for opening weekend. Jared Thomas, with a double, 2 walks, 2 stolen bases, and 4 runs, played a pivotal role in setting the offensive tone.
Women's tennis defeated number 12 Auburn on Sunday with a 4-1 victory here at home. After Auburn took the double point, Texas claimed a single victory, which led them to the win. Texas' 4th win over a top 12 opponent in their last 5 matches.
And number 3, Texas dominated number 4 South Carolina, securing a 5-0 victory. Texas secured the doubles point with wins at number 3 and number 2 in singles. Seniors Cleve Harper, Elliot Pizzeri, and Micah Braswell, along with junior Pierre-Yves Bally, secured wins at numbers 4, 1, 2, and 5, respectively, contributing to the overall sweep. The doubles match between Texas's Bailey and Telluri and South Carolina's Andrade da Silva and Story went to a tiebreaker, with Texas emerging victorious. The Longhorns continued their strong performance from the previous day, where they also secured a 4-0 win against number 13 Michigan. And looking at the week ahead, tonight we have men's basketball up against Kansas State at 8 p.m., airing on ESPN2. Tuesday, we have Texas baseball taking on Houston Christian at 6:30 p.m. live on the Longhorn Network. On Wednesday, Texas softball plays against Houston Christian at 5, and Texas women's basketball takes on the Texas Tech Raiders at 7 p.m. Both of those games are going to be on the Longhorn Network. Your weekend of sports begins on Friday with women's tennis up against number 2 Stanford at 3:30 p.m. Softball plays Colorado State at 6:30 p.m. and baseball will take on Cal Poly at 6:30 to kick off their 3-game series. Finally, on Saturday, men's basketball plays Kansas at 5 p.m. live on ESPN, while softball will take on Stanford at 7 p.m.
And that will do it for this week's episode of College Press Box. Thank you for everybody for tuning in, and thank to everyone in our back room, including our executive producers Joseph Dumfrey and Ike Kohler. Don't forget to tune in our other shows this week, like College Crossfire on Wednesday at 9 and 1-0 Sports on Friday at 10. That's it for me. I'm Perla Paredes, and she's Eliza King from TSTV Sports. Have a great night.